Okay, let's dive into this. How is it possible that a company's stock price soars because it announced it's scaling back its biggest, most ambitious project? Well, that is exactly what just happened with Meta, and it's a paradox that tells us pretty much everything we need to know about the tech industry right now.
So picture this. It's Thursday, December 4th, 2025. Investors wake up, and boom, Meta stock shoots up by about 4%. Now, for a company the size of Meta, a 4% jump isn't just a good day. We're talking billions of dollars in value, added in just a few hours. And that right there is the big question we're going to unpack. What could possibly make Wall Street so happy that a company seems to be ditching its flagship vision? It just doesn't make sense on the surface, right? But the answer, well, it reveals a ton about the state of tech today. So first up, let's talk about this surprising stock jump. This wasn't some random market blip or a fluke. No, this climb was a direct, immediate reaction to one single, very specific piece of news that dropped that morning. And here's the trigger, a bombshell report from Bloomberg. It claimed that Mark Zuckerberg was planning to make significant cuts to the company's Metaverse resources. Yeah, the very thing they literally renamed the entire company for.
And listen, we're not talking about minor trims here. The report was talking about budget cuts as high as 30%. 30%. It also suggested that layoffs were on the table, specifically targeting the virtual reality group, all part of the budget planning for 2026. This was a massive signal that a huge shift was happening.
Okay, so why on earth would investors celebrate cuts and layoffs? It seems backwards, right? Well, to get it, you've got to look at the absolutely brutal financial reality of Meta's Metaverse dream. And let me tell you, the numbers here are wild. You see, like with so many things in business, the key to this whole puzzle isn't really about the vision for the future, it's about the cash flow in the present. You just have to follow the money. Just look at this number, $4.4 billion. That's how much Meta's Reality Labs division, that's the Metaverse part of the company, lost in its most recent quarter. That's not revenue, people, that's a loss in just 3 months. And if you think that's bad, zoom out with me for a second. Since late 2020, this one division has burned through over $70 billion. Just let that sink in for a moment. $70 billion. That is a mind-boggling amount of money to lose on a single bet.
So you might be asking, where did all this cash go? Well, it was all being poured into Reality Labs. That's the division in charge of building the hardware for this new world. You know, stuff like the Quest family of VR headsets and those cool AI smart glasses they made with Ray-Ban and Oakley.
Now, to really feel the weight of these cuts, we got to jump on a time machine. Let's rewind just a few years, back to a time when the Metaverse wasn't seen as this financial black hole, but was being sold as the absolute future of, well, everything.
This timeline just says it all, doesn't it? You've got October 2021, when Facebook makes this massive, world-shaking announcement, going all in on the Metaverse. And then, bam, fast forward just over 4 years, and the headlines are all about deep, painful cuts to that exact same project.
And you have to remember how big the ambition was back then. Mark Zuckerberg himself said it. He called the Metaverse the next frontier. He was putting it on the same level as the invention of social networking itself. I mean, that's a huge claim.
And think about this. This wasn't some little side project. They changed the company's name from Facebook, one of the most famous brands in the history of the world, to Meta. That was the ultimate signal that this was a total reinvention of what the company was all about. So, that leads us to the big question. If the Metaverse dream is being scaled back, what's next? And this brings us to the final piece of the puzzle, the new direction that has investors so pumped.
See, these cuts aren't just about stopping the money bleed. No, they signal a huge strategic shift. Zuckerberg is now actively repositioning the social media giant to be an AI-first company. So here's the pivot, laid out plain and simple. The 2021 vision, that was all about building these incredible immersive virtual worlds as the next big computing platform. The 2025 pivot, it's all about doubling down on artificial intelligence to compete in a tech world that AI has completely turned upside down in just the last few years. And that brings us right back to the beginning. Why was Wall Street cheering? Because they don't see this as Meta failing. Not at all. They see it as the company finally getting financially disciplined. They're rewarding Meta for cutting its losses on a super expensive, kind of crazy bet, and instead putting that money into the technology that is defining the market right now, AI.
So what are we to make of all this? Is the big Metaverse dream dead and buried? Or is Meta just getting smarter? Maybe they're trimming the fat, right? Focusing on the immediate AI race so they can eventually come back and build a better, smarter, AI-powered version of the metaverse down the line. I guess only time will tell.